All right, hi everyone. Welcome back to Glass Ratner's Business Interruption webinar series. We've got a special guest today, and that is Gina Clausen Lozier with the law firm of Berger, Singerman down in Boca Raton. So she was going to join us to discuss some of the legal ramifications of a lot of the different court cases that are going on in all the different jurisdictions. And particularly what we wanted to discuss was a little bit about the uncertainty and then being able to kind of focus on some of your contractual obligations as a business owner. So Gina, welcome. Thanks for joining us. And if you want to give us a little background about with your firm and your practice in particular, we appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. Like you said, my name is Gina Clausen Lozier. I am a partner at the law firm of Berger Singerman. I focus primarily on first-party property claims, business interruption type claims for policyholders throughout the state of Florida. And we've definitely had a lot of interesting conversations about the business income losses from the COVID claims, especially in conjunction that hurricane season is starting here in a few months, or not even a few months, what, weeks now? It's end of May, right?
Yes, exactly. It's
been end of May. I know.
It's a little bit.
I think we all kind of lose track of time. And with that, one thing I just do want to mention, because I think it's important, is anyone who did have hurricane damage from Hurricane Irma, that they still have pending damage and may not have put in the claim or have reason to put in a supplemental claim. There is a 3-year limitation pursuant to Florida statute to give notice to your insurance company, which is going to expire currently in September of 2020. There's been some discussions as to whether the government is going to extend that given the COVID situation, but right now you probably want to operate under that 3-year deadline coming up in September. So something to keep in mind.
And we're certainly still seeing some of those as the state statute of limitations comes up. So we see our fair share of hurricane being down in Florida. So on that note, I think one of the things that is kind of interesting, and I want to get your perspective on, and is, you know, we see these court cases all over the United States and even in other countries specific to coronavirus and whether some of the coverage triggers are overcome with, you know, whether a virus can be construed as physical damage. So, you know, with the nature of insurance just more or less being a state-to-state business, how much should business owners really be paying attention to some of the court cases that may be happening in some of the jurisdictions that they don't reside?
Right. I think it's important to kind of have an overview as to what's going on. But I think when you kind of started out here, one of the best terms that we can use right now is uncertainty. Because at least in Florida, there hasn't really been a decision as to where these are going to go. There hasn't been a specific law or legislation passed right now giving any specific relief. And one thing that is important is these provisions are not one size fits all. I don't know how many policies I've looked at over the past couple months specifically for the virus or pandemic exclusions. And I do not very rarely do I see the same provision twice. So it really depends on what type of business you have, what type of provisions, exclusions, endorsements come in and out. So it's more important right now for business owners to focus on their contractual relationship with their own insurance company. And then in the event that there is something that comes out in another state that's going to be relevant or guiding with respect to your claim, then it will be known. If there's going to be some type of relief act, we're going to hear about it. There's a ton of noise out there. There's a ton of articles and webinars and, you know, different interviews, like, you know, obviously like ours, but it's just important to kind of, I think, block that out sometimes and focus on what your obligations are so you don't put yourself in a position that you may not be able to get the relief in the event that relief is available.
Right, and I think it always goes to the underlying fact of know your policy.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we get to the point where we really need to just make sure that everyone is focusing on the details, because all these different policies are very fact specific, and you know, there's different endorsements and things like that affect it. So, you know, so when we see news of some of the Pandemic Risk Insurance Act and things like that, I mean, is that something that business owners should concern themselves with, or just kind of have it in the back of your mind? I mean, how do you kind of advise some of your clients?
Right. What we're generally, and obviously it's going to depend on each specific client and each specific policy, but generally at this point, if a business has suffered a loss, it's prudent to put in the claim. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know whether any of those insurance acts and recoveries are going to be predicated on a denial of coverage. It may be that the act comes out and says, we'll give you relief in the event that you sought relief from your insurance company and they didn't provide it. You know, this is all speculative right now. This is clearly a situation that none of us have been through. So there's not a lot of precedent on how exactly it's going to play out. What you can only control right now is you obviously can't control what happens in the courts or the legislature or on Congress, but you can control putting your claim in and making sure at minimum you are complying with the minimum policy obligations to give notice of a loss, to provide any documentation to support your claim. And in some cases, I've seen a lot of policies that have 60-day proof of loss provisions after the loss, not after the insurance company requests the proof of loss. So there are some obligations that, you know, policyholders and business owners should be looking into to make sure that they at least take the steps to protect themselves in the event that any recovery is going to be through the carrier or some other relief that is triggered on making the claim.
Right. And again, if you're focusing on your own policy, you know what some of those provisions are. Obviously, it's important, you know, you ask for an extension or something to that effect.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have any other practical advice for business owners or for some of the other practitioners that may be going through this in terms of being able to kind of focus and kind of minimize some of the background noise that goes on?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, whether it's you talk to your agent or accountant or lawyer or some professional, you know, insurance companies are written in their policies are written in a different language. It's like reading a foreign language. And as insurance professionals, I think you know that we know how to read it. It depends on where there's a comma or a period or a paragraph or, you know, a subsection. So you may look at your policy and see one thing, but it may mean completely something else. So it's just, try to understand it, and you know, if you need help, seek out that assistance from somebody. So again, the last thing you want to do is put yourself in a position that the insurance company blames you for denying the claim, saying something like, hey, you didn't produce the documents to me, or you didn't tell me quick enough, or you know, you didn't tell me how much your loss is. You don't ever want to be in that situation. You want them to be the ones to tell you no, and it's because of the provisions of the policy, not because of something you may have not done.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So just we're looking to be able to preserve some of those rights for yourselves,
right?
And then dealing with the ramifications of how your insurer may respond. So.
Right. I mean, unfortunately, you can't force them at this point. If they say no, they're going to say no, and then you have to evaluate what steps you're going to take next to force them to try to pay you. But you know, if you never put in the claim, then you're never going to know what the response is. And when you're looking at businesses who are out millions and millions of dollars, it's worth investing some time now to figure out whether there's going to be some potential relief.
All right, great. Well, I appreciate your comments this week, and we'll obviously hope to see you back and talk for some future episodes.
Yeah, well, like I said, we have hurricane season coming up soon, so I'm sure there's be a lot to talk about in insurance. But thank you for having me, and I appreciate it.
All right, great. Thanks.